We are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my co-host, Joe DeLeone. Joe, what's happening?
Not much. I got back late last night at like 8 o'clock from Mobile, and I went into a coma. Went right to sleep, woke back up. You could kind of see me this morning. I was a little groggy. No sweet sleep during the week. We're back. I'm excited to talk about Tommy Rees because it is mind-blowing that was a move that went down, Blake.
We will get into it. I think some shots will be taken from both sides on one another, from me to you.
Oh, yeah.
So let's just say this. Tommy Rees to Alabama is extremely interesting to me. I came on this show and justified why Joe Brady wouldn't come and saying that, look, all the offensive coordinators that Saban hires have head coaching experience. Mm-hmm. Then he goes and gets 30-year-old Tommy Rees, which I do think there are some – we had mentioned this, and I told you some sourcing had said Nick wants to get back to a philosophy. Nick is going to get back to the philosophy under Tommy in reference to how they structure things.
Yes.
Now, is it going to work? Is Tommy Rees a good play caller? That's something completely different. We'll talk about that here today. Who does Notre Dame go after? You are our Notre Dame fanboy.
Fanboy? Oh, come on. You can't use a better word than that, fanboy? I'm not an expert, so it's not like I've got...
So listen, there's so many things I could say, like, do you want me to call you a Catholic altar boy?
Because okay, well, that's a lot worse. That one's a lot worse. So you know what? I'll take fanboy.
Especially if you're a priest. You don't want to be, all right.
Yes.
In the name of the Father, Son, okay. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Father, if I've sinned. Anyway, I know that me and you will go after this. This is probably the biggest part that me and you will go after. Who should Notre Dame hire? Now, the real truth of what Marcus Freeman's legacy will be at Notre Dame, Joe, is who he makes a hire here. Not Al Golden, not Rhule. That doesn't matter. Defense doesn't matter. Who does he make the hire on for his offensive coordinator with Sam Hartman? And you were trying to tell me the other day, oh, Mr. Blake, why didn't you put Notre Dame in your top 10? Well, now you know why.
Well, look, hey, if they hire the right person, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, they hire the right person, I think you got to put them in their top 10. I still believe, and I don't want to waste too much of our debate here on the opening monologue. I still believe that you should put Notre Dame in ahead of Washington. I think Washington's a good team. They're a Pac-12 team. I think Notre Dame's got a couple more nice pieces, especially with Sam Hartman.
Here's the difference. Washington can beat Stanford. Can Notre Dame?
Because they lost to them last year?
Yeah.
That was last season. We're moving on to next season. We're here and we're moving on to 2023. They absolutely can beat. They can beat Washington. I think that they have the capability to beat Washington, which is why I would have ranked them higher.
I'm a Michael Penix homer. Stop making me.
I know you are. I know.
All right, listen. And they kept our offensive coordinator.
Well, what's the attraction? Is it just because he's lefty? Is that what it is, or is it?
I don't know. I think him being lefty. You're too young to remember this, but the LSU faithful, the SEC faithful remember this. When Tyrann Mathieu graced the world with his presence in 2011.
Yeah.
There was a video on YouTube that came out. It was called The Honey Badger. The Honey Badger don't give a shit. The Honey Badger takes what he wants.
I remember that.
Okay. That's Michael Penix Jr. when he's throwing the football. He don't give a shit. He is going to let it rip. He doesn't give two Rudy Poos who you are. I just like that, dude. I just like a guy that just gets back in the pocket and says, and his throwing motion, like he's just letting it rip. I just like what he reminds me of? A Pat White that can throw.
Pat White that can throw. I mean, I can see it. And I like Michael Penix Jr. as well. Do I think he beats Notre Dame in a one-on-one, a head-to-head matchup here if they played each other next season? That I don't know. And maybe me putting this out into the ether, they play each other in a bowl game, and then we can actually have an answer.
Notre Dame has to play LSU in a playoff or bowl game first. No.
Or are you
I
saying
think
that
that's gonna happen.
that might happen?
Let me tell you something. Joseph, on my life, if LSU and Notre Dame play in a bowl game, buddy, and LSU wins, you
Oh
will
my
never
God.
hear the.
I'm turning my phone. I'm turning my phone off.
You'll have to do more than that.
Oh,
What's a country that doesn't have extradition? Like Venezuela? You would have to go to Venezuela because I will find you. It's like I listen, me and my family are having breakfast this morning and Ben's sitting there and he's watching his iPad and it's like this little song comes on. Little finger, where are you? And they pop out, here I am. I'm Littlefinger coming after you. Pause. Okay, I'm just letting you know. All right. Also, what we will talk about today is Texas and Oklahoma. It's going to wait until 2025. Joe, I think me and you're going to actually agree on this. We kind of did in the pregame our pregame meeting. Yeah, like
it is.
They're trying to push this so hard. Oh, they're coming. That's what she said. Who cares? Whatever year they come, they come. So
we need to stop waiting for them to come. They're going to come eventually.
Yeah, stop waiting for them to come. Let them take their own times to come. If they come long enough, and it's in a good stream, then I think fans will be
all
okay.
Right.
All right. So
if you can't tell that we both didn't play football, but
well, I mean, that's really where I learned the trash talk. Maybe we need to make that a segment one day. Like, how did you learn? That's where I learned it, was the locker room. All right. So let's do this. Let's get everything rolling. Everybody do us a favor. Stop, collaborate, and listen. Joe, I'm serious about this one. I'm going to post it probably every day in the month of February. I'm trying to give away $200. I'm going to post it, share it every single day. I did it this morning. You got to get us to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, 5,000 subscribers on AYS. We're really close to both of them. Mm-hmm. Just go and subscribe. Don't be a Rudy Poo. Like, I'm literally going to pick one person to give $200 to. So just go subscribe to both, and then we'll get you that $200 in a drawing. All right.
Sure.
Also, if you're on Facebook, hit the like and share those Facebook groups, share your own social media pages. Subscribe to us right now on YouTube. Hit that notification bell as well. We had a short that went viral, I guess. What's really viral? Is 11,000 views viral? No, not really.
I think it's on pace for viral. I think on YouTube, it means it could pop off even more. The only problem is the topic is now outdated.
Over.
Yeah, it's outdated. Yeah. So I don't know how many people are going to even click into it. We'll have a viral clip from this show, though. I'm willing to bet you that much.
We will. Multiple. I will tell you, I wasn't wrong in that clip. So,
you're absolutely right.
Anyway, all right. So if you're there, rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff as well. Shout out to our good friends over at TuneIn app, XM Radio, wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, subscribe as well. Had somebody send us the other day that they were listening to us on Spotify. So love, and Spotify's doing some things, big things. Joe, maybe we can get our video on there one day. Who knows?
It's actually not hard to get on. Technically speaking, we can't, but we'll talk about that after.
All right.
Because you have to use their uploading platform.
I would do it just to say I'm on video. What's on Spotify? Call me Joe Rogan. Like, that's exactly what I would do it for. All right. Let's get to our good friends over at BetOnline, betonline.ag. Guys, we return in 50 seconds. We got a lot to talk about. I feel like Joe's going to get a little emotional about his boo, Tommy Rees.
We'll see.
BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag.
All right, we are back.
We're back.
unlike Texas, we are back. All right, Joe. So yesterday, and it's kind of been teased around, and I kind of went off on my show like about this whole Tommy Rees to Alabama thing. I will give my thoughts here again, but look, you're a Notre Dame fan. Of anybody probably in this chat right now, you've watched Tommy Rees more than anybody because you watch Notre Dame. You're a Notre Dame fan. What are your thoughts about Tommy Rees going to the University of Alabama?
And to your point, Blake, I have watched a lot of Tommy Rees. Growing up, he was the quarterback he was one of the most memorable guys, not for a good reason, memorable guys that I watched be the starting quarterback at the University of Notre Dame. And it's kind of funny, the level of frustration watching him play translated perfectly in the way that he called plays as the offensive coordinator. I said this to you before we went live. It has the same energy as what happened with Brian Kelly when he left, where a lot of us were relieved because I don't want to go down the Brian Kelly rabbit hole because I know that we will waste a lot of time. But we're relieved, and I'm relieved, I think, for the most part, that he is leaving to go to another destination, that we don't need to suffer through him being the offensive coordinator any further, and that somebody else willingly hired him up. There were talks during most of the season of him getting potentially fired, him jumping, maybe going to the NFL as an offensive, or not an offensive coordinator, but a quarterback coach. Him leaving opens up the door for Marcus Freeman to hire somebody that he wants. It felt like Marcus Freeman kept Tommy Rees purely for the sake of continuity with recruiting. He didn't want to disrupt the last recruiting cycle and the upcoming recruiting cycle, and he wanted to do what kept the class together because that was why they kept Marcus Freeman as the head coach. He is now gone, and I will say this, Alabama fans, have fun watching him call the most predictable and frustrating offense that you have ever watched. And I know that you were talking about how Nick Saban wants to get back to the roots of what has been successful for Alabama in the past, which is a pro-style, run-oriented offense. And what I saw this year, I'll give Tommy Rees credit. At the end of the season, he did absolutely lean on his running game effectively with 3 great running backs that he had at his disposal. But the games where they were completely shut down, the offensive approach was either throw the ball to Michael Mayer quickly or we're going to run the football. And that was what led them to a lot of their bad games, a lot of their early losses this season. And I think going forward, this is going to be better for them in the long term.
All right, I say this in a non-joking way, not trying to argue. And I think that you'll know that I'm being serious when I say this.
Okay.
Number one, Alabama right now and probably will have more talent offensively than what Tommy Rees saw last season at Notre Dame and what I think that he would see moving forward at Notre Dame. I think you got to give Alabama this more than anything. They put more offensive players in the league than Notre Dame does.
Yes.
Okay. So I just want to go ahead.
All I was going to say is I agree at quarterback. I agree at receiver. I agree at running back.
I don't
not
agree
on
with offensive line.
Yeah, not an offensive line.
Offensive line.
He's never going to have a better offensive line than the one he had at Notre Dame, especially this past year.
I will just say this, and you're not going to like it. I am going to make us go down this Brian Kelly rabbit hole, whether you like it or not, because it does mean. Again, I'm not trying to joke on this one. Like, I'm being for real. We're going to go down that Brian Kelly rabbit hole. That offensive line's not going to be as good down the road as it is right now. I'm telling you. Listen
for
to
Notre Dame?
Yes. Listen to what I'm telling you.
Okay.
I will get to my reasons as to why it's already starting.
Okay.
All right. Tommy Rees will have better talent at Alabama, in my personal opinion. However, this is the truth of why Nick Saban is hiring Tommy Rees. Number one, he wants more control of what's going on. We've seen coaches that get older, whether it be Bobby Bowden, whether it be Joe Paul. Now, I don't want to compare Nick Saban to those guys because I still think that he has a lot more wit to him, fire to him, energy to him. He's not really losing his mind. But I feel like he thinks that he can control Tommy Rees more than what maybe he could do a Bill O'Brien. Because if Bill O'Brien's seeing something from the box, I think that Bill O'Brien can articulate because he's been around and been in football longer, so he can tell Saban, Nick, I know that you want to run this and you want to do these plays. We can't do it because of X, Y, and Z. I don't know if Tommy Rees has that enough enough skins on the wall to be able to go up to a Nick Saban and say, no, because look, Lane Kiffin, okay, he would try to control Lane, and that was the reason why they had so much riffraff between one another. The only one that he let go, like really go, was Sark, and they had a lot of success. Number two, this is a philosophy change for Nick. There have been multiple games over the past 2 seasons where under Bryce Young, they would have 40, 45, 50 passing attempts, and they would lose a football game. With that being said, Nick has always had a philosophy. Listen, in 2000, I was a very chubby 10-year-old boy when Nick Saban was hired. Nothing changed. I'm still chubby. 2003, he wins a national title at LSU. He gives a persona around LSU that we are a run-first football team. And for for everything that LSU was, they continued that tradition under Les. Everybody knows that. When you got off the bus, LSU's a running football team. He did that at Alabama. You have Mark Henry. You have Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry. So many great backs. Alvin Kamara was a part of that running back room, when in the very beginning of his career. He wants to get back to a philosophy of running the football. However, and number 3, you're not going to agree with this. This is a massive win for LSU. And let me tell you why. Tommy Rees has not been outside of the cocoon shell and offensive play calling philosophy outside of under Brian Kelly more than 3 years. In 2021, Tommy Rees and Notre Dame had the 20th best offense in the country. Brian Kelly exits and goes somewhere else. They're 60th in total offense. Yeah. Now, you can say, well, he had injuries. Notre Dame had injuries. The quarterback got hurt. The Buckner kid was just, in my opinion, you're not going to like me saying this, was worse than Drew Pine.
Oh, he was.
He's worse. Brian Kelly, being that offensive-minded guy, would have never allowed Notre Dame to go into the season with Buckner being the outright just person. Mm-hmm. That's why Notre Dame went and got Sam Hartman to go into Irishtown to take over. Brian Kelly comes to LSU, goes and gets Jane Daniels. He probably would have tried to do the same thing at Notre Dame as he did at LSU. Tommy Rees has gotten worse without Brian Kelly. I think that playbook – now, listen, last night I went and watched a lot. Joe, I'm talking about a lot of Notre Dame highlights. You know what offense it really reminds me of?
What?
A great value LSU from a year ago. It really does. Zone reads, some quick screen, RPO action. It was all the same. Quick tight end. Let's look. You're not going to call it a rub route. They're running rub routes to the tight end. LSU's doing it. Notre Dame did it with Mayer. Buddy, it's the same thing.
I understand where you're coming from with saying that this is better for LSU. Look, you made the statement that Tommy Rees got worse under Brian Kelly. I argue he was worse. He was already worse. I'm not saying that I don't think that Tommy Rees can't be a successful coach, but for him to be hired without proven results for this position is really freaking weird to me. It's a really weird move by Nick Saban. And I do agree with you that it feels as though he is making this decision purely for the sake of wanting to have more control. And I would argue taking more control does not always mean more success. And I do believe that this ultimately could, I'm not going to say it's going to lead to a downfall because it's Alabama. They're not going to completely fall off of a cliff, but this is not going to be a positive result. They're not going to suddenly be better than what they were with Bill O'Brien. I would argue it might put them in a position to struggle more. I do not have faith in what Tommy Rees has done. And frankly, if you're hiring a kid because in the coaching world, he is a kid. If you are hiring someone that young for those reasons, you are in a very, very bad spot. If that you're hiring the guy because you can control him and because his offense stunk last year, and I know that there were limitations, but they, let's be honest, played a cupcake schedule for most of the season. The way that they played against Notre Dame,
right?
The way that they played against USC is a pretty clear indication of how bad that they are offensively.
I agree with
they
that.
were.
And buddy, look, I joke about this a lot. Marshall did nothing special.
No,
nothing. They did nothing special. You know who else didn't do anything special? Stanford. You know why Stanford won that game? They literally ran the same defensive sets that Marshall did. You know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It is incredulous to me that you cannot make adjustments. That's the biggest thing is like, Tommy, why aren't you making adjustments?
Well, that's why I'm so frustrated by this hire. It's the predictiveness of the offense. And I've sat and watched these games and I'd be like, okay, they're going to go run Michael Mayer's getting the ball on this play. You know, they're running the ball right between the guard and the center on this play. Watch, they're going to do that right now on this play. It is so predictable, but that's the biggest issue, Blake, is that he doesn't adapt. We came into halftime against Stanford and Marshall, and they're running the same crap. The things that aren't working with Drew Pine, who's clearly limited, and you're not trying to re-emphasize running the football and leaning on the things that were working, and you're still trying to do the same silly little things that aren't producing yards. He keeps trying to do it. We see him have meltdowns in the press box because I think he knows part of it's on him, and he should know it's on him.
Yeah, but the only thing is I still think that he's going to have some relative more success because he's at Alabama. I just think that he has, but then I think about this, Joe. I say he's got better weapons. They don't have a tight end like Michael Mayer. They got some running backs that will be good. Now they're trying to bring in some receivers. Look, I've made this well known, and I'm not a Bill O'Brien homer, but if you think Bill O'Brien was bad, what in the good God blessed world of above incarnation do you believe that Tommy Rees is a better offensive coordinator than Bill O'Brien is? Look, you can hate Bill O'Brien all the live long day. You could say that he traded DeAndre Hopkins, and we've talked about this, that he traded DeAndre Hopkins for a packet of ketchup, a cinnamon roll, and a frosted honey bun. But the bottom line was the Cardinals are now trying to ship him out too because he's a cancer in the locker room. Bill O'Brien is a really good offensive play caller. Situationally, can he be bad at times? Sure. But Bryce, here's an example. Bryce can't throw interceptions in the red zone either. It's not always on your OC when he's calling a play. I cannot understand in the life of me what you think, like, what does Tommy Rees do that makes him so amazing? Like, I don't get it. Joe, I wrote this down and I tweeted this out yesterday. Think about this. Notre Dame, they got worse in every single offensive category from 2021 to 2022. Every one of them. There wasn't one thing that they did better. They didn't score the same amount of points. They were worse on third down. They had more penalties, and they were older. That offensive line was older. Mayer was in his second year. You had a second-year quarterback that got hurt. Drew Pine, God bless his little soul, Drew Pine didn't even – look, you're not going to like me saying this. He's not a good quarterback.
No, he's terrible.
But he did what Tommy Rees did tell him to do, and y'all did start to win. That is a little something because they stayed inside a system.
Yes.
Let me tell you why I think here's the justification. When Bugner went down, Drew Pine enters. And let's call what Drew Pine is. Rudy Poo. Okay? And since he's Rudy Poo, they really went after him and just staying in the system. They completely turned their season around and went 7-1 on the way out. Well, I think that a guy like Saban looks at that when you have a guy like Jalen Milroe, Ty Simpson, and saying, I want these guys to be a part of the system. Outside of Tua coming in the second half and beating Georgia, Alabama has not won national championships with their best quarterbacks.
No.
Bryce Young should have won a national title at Alabama. He didn't. As a starter. They won national championships with 2 Cokes and a line of Sprite. AJ McCarron and his really, as Brett Musburger would say, his really attractive girlfriend, now wife. What's his name? It's on the top of my head, and now I can't think of it. Jake Coker was another guy that they won with. Mac Jones is another guy that they won an. Greg Red Rocket McElroy. What do they all have in common? They are system quarterbacks.
Yes.
Saban wants to get back to the good old days. That's his justification. I'm telling you, I don't have to know or cover Alabama. At some point, the writing's on the wall.
Yeah. And one thing's for sure, though, I don't know if Tommy Rees' system necessarily sets up these guys for success. The one other thing separate from me talking about the predictiveness of it, one thing we did see where they struggled offensively, and there were a lot of games where they did win, and we watched teams crawl back in and then almost get back into the game at the very end of it. What was so frustrating for me watching Tommy Rees is that they did have a lot of really nice results running the football. And I'm sure that is what Nick is excited about, knowing that they just signed 2 top running back recruits, and they've got a bunch of other guys on the roster that looked promising behind Jahmyr Gibbs last year. They've got the talent. They've got a lot of really good running back talent that they can rotate and lean on, like we've seen them do in the past during those years when they won those national championships. But the problem with Tommy Rees' offensive approach is I am yet to see him properly adapt when a defense steps up and stops the run game. Every time that their opponents have completely slowed down their run game, nothing is opened up through the air. It's a lot of third and long, a lot of third and medium, and them not completing passes. And you could make the argument that was a Drew Pine limitation, but at the same time, with the talent that they had on that roster, they should have been able to convert, score more points. You can't just get completely neutralized because the defense knows how to play your run game effectively.
Here's the flip. I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
And you make a very good point. Here's why. Just because you have more talent and just because Alabama's going to give you more talent doesn't mean anything when the defenses that you're going against has just as equal amount of talent. What do I mean? You're going up against, hypothetically, throwing this out there. In not so many weeks, if you make it to a SEC title, you're going against Georgia. Tommy Rees is not going to outsmart Kirby Smart in that defense. He's not going to know what to do. I'm telling you, he's not.
Yeah. You
got to go up against LSU. And a guy, really, Joe, that we haven't talked about that's really doing some good things in recruiting, buddy, at the end of the year, you got to go up against Hugh Freeze. You're going up against a lot of good defenses and a lot of good recruits that these teams are bringing in. Look, I am not saying that Tommy Rees is going to be an outright fail. But what I will say is I think that he is not bad. You're downgrading from Bill O'Brien to Tommy Rees. Like there's no other way that you can make the argument to me, the justification until we see Tommy Rees on the field, that Bill O'Brien is a worse offensive coordinator than Tommy Rees.
So you make a really good point here in saying that maybe on paper for Nick Saban, this hire makes sense for him to be like, oh, this fits the philosophy. This gets us back to what I want to do. But that's not how Nick Saban needs to make this hire. And it almost makes me think that Nick is still in the thought process of, I'm the one who runs the SEC. Everyone else has to adapt to what I do. But the reality of it is this decision should have been made off of, okay, who's going to get me those wins over Kirby? Who's going to get me those wins against Josh Heupel and Hugh Freeze and Brian Kelly? All those teams with great defensive coordinators. That was what the approach needs to be. It is a different era in the SEC. And I know, Alabama fans and also college football fans in general hate to have the discussion of, is Nick done? Like, is his tenure as the guy running the conference done? And I'm not saying that it is, but moves like this are troubling.
Let me ask you this. How is it not when you have an SEC team that just won back-to-back national titles?
Because Nick still has it in him. Nick's
nobody's saying he doesn't have it in him.
Crazy. It's crazy for me. Like, I can't fully commit to the Nick Saban has done thing because we've seen him turn things around really quickly when they have a down year.
That's not what you said, though. You said the guy that leads the SEC.
Yeah,
Nick Saban ain't leading the SEC right now, big dog.
For sure, he could. But if he had done this hire correctly, they could be leading the SEC again next year. They have the talent. They recruited really freaking well. They're going to get back to where they were, but I don't have a lot of faith in Tommy Rees. And look, you said you don't want to commit to saying that this is a failure. I think that this is going to be a failure. I do not believe that this result will be positive. I don't know if it results in Tommy Rees getting fired.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I don't know if it results in him getting fired or how this ends, but I don't think that this leads to a national championship. It absolutely
Nick won't
does not.
fire him. He'll get another job somewhere. He'll
Yes,
magically get a job somewhere.
yes.
Here's the only reason why I'm not going to call it a failure yet. I think that college football goes in cycles. And your back-to-back national champion, what did they do? What is their philosophy?
Defense. Run the football.
They hadn't hired a DC yet. They're getting Tommy Rees to come in back and run the football. Bro, look, LSU as an example, they had, dude, under Les Miles, they'd run the ball 70% of the time. This first year under Brian Kelly, they shattered the record for most total rushing touchdowns that they've ever had in a year. Ever. Dude, they were running the ball over everybody. Joe, they were closer. LSU was closer to 200 yards rushing per game than 100.
Mm-hmm.
I think Nick knows that something that we are not seeing. And I think that it is that maybe in college football, you got to get back to a little bit of running the football. What people think about all the times in the NFL, it's, all these great quarterbacks. It is, but you still have to go out there and run the football. Look at what Jalen Hurts is doing in Philadelphia, a guy that he knows. You got to be able to run the football to control the game and control the clock. The only reason I won't completely commit to him being an outright failure is I don't know who they're hiring at DC yet. Now, I will tell you this, Joe, more than I've ever done before on this show. If Alabama hires Jeremy Pruitt and they allow him to hire Jeremy Pruitt as their next defensive coordinator, you will have to sit here for 30 minutes and listen to me absolutely just go ballistic because the NCAA and all this other kind of shit, they can't get away with that. Now, everybody's on Jeremy Pruitt watch. Well,
dude, look, I feel like they're going to hire Jeremy Pruitt because part of this Tommy Rees move is I think that Nick knows that he doesn't need to worry about his defense. And Jeremy Pruitt hiring him means that they won't have to worry. He can give full autonomy to him and just let him roll.
Maybe. Brock, thank you for the kind words. He says, these both guys are idiots. They don't know Alabama football. Nick Saban is going to mold these young guys, and they'll be just fine. Well, Brock, if you're still with us, let me just say this. And you're saying we're overreacting. Overreacting to what?
We're in the business of reacting. I hate that people would say that.
I do hate that too. But overreacting to what? You hired an offensive coordinator that literally had the 60th best offense in the country.
He stunk. This isn't an up and comer. Every step of the way, again, as a Notre Dame fan, every step of the way, there hasn't been oh man, we're going to lose Tommy next year. Tommy's been putting really good results together. He's somebody who might be in the NFL in a few years. That's not what the sentiment has ever been. It's can Tommy figure this out? Can Tommy get the job done? Is he going to be here at the end of the season because he's been fired or moved on to another spot and asked to move to a smaller role at a different program? He is not some young up and comer. That is not what he is. This is a weird hire, and I can't fully wrap my head around it. I know we illustrated a lot of reasons, but it does not make sense.
It doesn't. But if they hire Pruitt, I'm telling you, I'm going ballistic.
Mm-hmm.
And look, we're on Pruitt watch. So is McDonald's. But regardless, I do agree. I think that you make a really good point.
Yeah.
That Nick doesn't have to necessarily worry about his defense if Pruitt's here because they have the same defensive philosophy and he's comfortable with Pruitt. The only other thing with that though is I feel like there is something that look. I don't know if Nick thinks he's losing his grip, but look, if you nobody like Alabama fans are on Twitter ripping me alive, saying that I'm just an LSU guy or hater, and I'm like. Dude, Tommy, like if LSU would have hired Tommy Rees, everybody would. If Tommy Rees would have gone to any other school in the country, people would call it a bad hire. But because Nick Saban did it, it's fine.
Decision.
Now, here's another thing, okay? And to play devil's advocate with you a little bit.
Yeah.
Nick has hired some really damn good offensive coordinators, though.
But, and we talked about this when we were debating candidates. A lot of those guys that he hired had a proven track record, were head coaches elsewhere.
You're right.
This one is it's like a clump of guys, all the good offensive coordinators that he has. You could sit and mark down all of the traits that align with them. And then all the way over here would be Tommy Rees. There's no continuity. There's none. We can't draw from past experience and say, well, when he hired so-and-so, that worked out. This is unlike any other hire, unless I'm missing something. This is unlike any other hire that he's made for the offense.
So I'm trying to find what he sees that I don't. I'm really trying to find it, and I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I do have?
What?
A conspiracy theory.
I forgot you texted me this yesterday. Let's hear it.
Here's my conspiracy theory. You ready?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
A couple weeks ago, Tommy Rees calls Nick Saban. Calls Brian Kelly and says, Coach Kelly, Nick Saban just called me and wants me to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama. And Brian Kelly goes, listen, do everything you can to be the next offensive coordinator at Alabama. I will call Nick right now and say, look, Tommy Rees is the next level innovative mind. And Tommy, getting all giddy, responds to Brian Kelly and says, really, Coach? You really believe I'm an innovative mind? And Brian Kelly responds with, no, you really fucking suck. But I need you to spy on Alabama and report back to me. And Tommy Rees goes, yes, sir, Daddy.
That is the most ridiculous conspiracy theory that you could have. But you texted that to me yesterday when I was bouncing between flights. And come on.
Does Tommy Rees call Brian Kelly Daddy?
I mean, I'm not going to say yes or no to that question, but no, come on.
By the
way,
it's not that big of a conspiracy theory.
I would just I wanted to throw this out to you. So let's remove for a second all the things that we just talked about, why we're not that high on Tommy Rees, okay? Last year, we were a little bit higher on Tommy Rees, and Brian Kelly tried to get Tommy Rees. Brian Kelly tried to get Tommy Rees and Marcus Freeman to follow him to LSU. He tried to get them to come, right? Do you find any concern? Do you find any concern in the fact that Nick was able to hire him after?
No, I don't.
He wouldn't go with his own guy to the SEC. His own head coach who coached him and was his boss.
You know who did? You know who did? Mike Denbrock, who was playing Alabama in a playoff.
Well, you got the better hire. Mike Denbrock is the better offensive coordinator.
I think that Tommy here's the difference. Okay, here's the difference in what people don't understand. I think Tommy felt that if he was under Brian Kelly and continue to be under Brian Kelly, he will never get to call his offense, like what he wants to do. Look, you know this better than most, Joe, because you're a Notre Dame guy.
Yeah,
Brian Kelly's going to be very heavily involved in the offensive play calling. Hey, I will tell you something else. He was very heavily involved in the Alabama LSU offensive play calling. How did that pay out? You know who called the last 2-point play? Don't know if it was Mike Denbrock. Okay, so as much as people want to dookie and poo-poo on Brian Kelly, no, I don't. I think Tommy Rees made a decision that he wanted to get out of the shadow of Brian Kelly, and it literally backfired.
I will also say this too for Tommy Rees' decision making. I think that he decided to stay at Notre Dame because he saw that as an opportunity to cement himself, build up his resume, prove his capabilities as an offensive coordinator with less control. Now that didn't really work out. And as I was lamenting at the beginning of the show, a lot of other Notre Dame fans were lamenting the entire season. And most people were calling for his firing. I think most people anticipated he would not be the offensive coordinator by the end of the year. He resurrected things a little bit, and I think he saved himself a little bit of time. And I was ultimately surprised that they still stuck with him. I think that he is just sick of hearing all of that, people calling for his head. I think there's a little bit more safety with him going to Nick Saban. Because all the pressure goes.
I completely disagree with that.
It buys him time, though. We're talking about how Saban controls, has more control over him.
No, it doesn't buy him that much time because
at least 2 years.
Bro, think about this. Think about this for just a minute. There is a fan base in the country that's upset that their offense was scoring 41.5 points per game and they wanted that offensive coordinator to be fired. And you think that Tommy Rees doesn't have more pressure on him at Alabama? Dog, I love you, but listen to me. I've lived in the South my entire life. I've seen toothless people from Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Florida, and all of them are the same. Everybody says, oh, no, you have inbred people. No, you have inbred people. No, you have the most, or your state has some people with the most one tooth that we've all seen. Bottom line is, Alabama football, to their credit, is a different animal. It's a different beast. And if you're going to convince me or try to convince me that Alabama fans will be more up, like,
that's not so much what I'm saying.
Dude, they wanted Bill O'Brien fired for scoring 41.5 points per game.
That's not so much what I'm saying. Alabama fans are going to react the way that they do. You know, that is what it is. I'm not saying more from the fan perspective. I'm more saying the safety and the protection that comes from Nick Saban handpicking him. Like, this is a circumstance for him to step into and to buy a couple of years' time. Let's be completely honest. If Notre Dame finished with 3-4 losses because of a lack of offensive success for back-to-back seasons, he was out of a job. And that's kind of what it was trending towards. That was the direction we're going in here. I'm just saying it's less pressure because it buys him extra time. If things don't go well right off the bat, they're going to be calling for him. But I will say this, though, and I think we can agree, he has more talent to work with, which means that, again, he's got less pressure on him because he's going to have an easier time scheming yards for those guys than the guys that he was working with at Notre Dame. If that makes sense.
It does make sense. Brock says Bill O'Brien was ass.
Oh, we know where he stands.
Okay, let me just say this.
Did you see the way he spelled ridiculous, by the way? That's a new one. He spelled it with an E. That's a new one, man.
We're ridiculous. What is a ridiculous?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so this is my thing. If you're gonna call us out, you gotta spell right.
Honestly.
Again, though, Joe, we went viral on this part, whatever. 4th in scoring, 11th in total offense, 500 yards per game, 24th in the country in first downs. Here's the thing that Tommy Rees is going to have to come in and help fix. Yeah. Now, if Tommy Rees can do this, and we'll get to this Notre Dame OC in just a second, 126th in penalties.
I don't know how Notre Dame did in penalties last year. God damn it! I wish I pulled that. They were 7th.
7th. There is a part of me of the only thing that Notre Dame got better in offensively was penalties. However, there's a fine line with that.
Right.
There's a really fine line with that. All right.
I will concede before we transition. I do think that there is a path for success. I do think that there is a way for this to work out.
I agree with that.
And it's all going to come down to if Tommy can learn from his mistakes. Because look, the run game is going to be 10 times better than it's been in over the previous regimes. I can promise you that. What he was working with, and I know that they had a better offensive line, for what he was working with limitations at quarterback, they ran the ball really, really well. Audric Estime, Logan Diggs, Chris Tyree are all pretty good running backs. Most of them are 4-star kids. They ran the ball really, really hard. And I think that there's a lot more talent at running back in Alabama. If he can replicate that, the scheme, the way that they were doing things, I think that they're going to almost not double, but have, a significant jump in the amount of yards that he was able to produce last year when he was
I
at
don't
Notre
know
Dame.
if I agree with that, Joe. They were running the ball for 150 yards per game. It's not like Alabama's offensive.
But that was being. Oh, you're talking about Alabama was running for 150 yards per game.
Yeah,
but I think that there's going to be so much more of an emphasis on running the football. Like I think that that's what.
Now I agree with that. I agree with that. But let's not sit here and act like Alabama wasn't running up and down the field on people, because they were.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And I think that they're going to be pushing the ball. They're going to be pushing more in the direction of maybe getting closer to 200 yards per game. But what is going to be determinant of their success is, can he help develop whoever that next quarterback is?
Bingo. Which is going to be Ty Simpson. Now, it's interesting how they're going to use Jalen Milroe. That's the only thing I'll say. All right, let's transition here, Joe. You want to tell our good friends over about Bet Online right quick as we try to transition here?
Yeah, if you're like me and you're bored out of your mind when there's no football on, look, college basketball is fine, but you got to make it a little bit more entertaining. The way that I do that, I head on over to betonline.ag, which has all of the latest odds, news, anything. I bet on a Southern basketball game the other day, which hit, by the way. I bet on them to cover. There's not a lot of sites that have odds for those games. Like
the Southern Jaguars?
Southern University.
Okay.
That bet hit. My following 4 bets did not hit, so ignore that. But BetOnline has all those odds, though, for any game that you're looking for, any level. I use it for all of my betting. BetOnline.ag, and use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to get that 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, betonline.ag, where the game starts.
I always forget to say where the game starts. All right, you're the Notre Dame man. You're the Notre Dame fan.
Look,
hold on.
Yes.
If these 2 words come out of your mouth, I'm cutting the show off.
What is it, Mike Denbrock?
If you say Joe Brady, I swear to Christ, I will throw StreamYard into the river.
What if, I don't know if you can throw a software that's not tangible into a river, but you'll find a way to my point. What if I said Mike Denbrock? Would that, I'm putting that out there as the connection to Marcus Freeman.
What does Marcus Freeman have? Does Marcus Freeman have any ties to Mike Denbrock? They weren't. I mean, were they not at Cincinnati at the same time? That's the only thing that I'm hanging on to. I don't think that is a likely one. I think it's one to consider. I think it's one that you could just randomly, as the randomness is Tommy Rees going to Alabama, we could be like, wow, Marcus Freeman. Really I don't think Denbrock's going to leave Brian.
Look,
I don't.
The one thing that I you do hear the Joe Brady, but at the same time, after having conversations with you, it does not sound like he has an intention to return because of his qualms with recruiting.
He would okay. Listen, to the LSU people and the AYS fans, they know the connection here. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to tell you this. How do I want to say this? Just let it know that it's been known to me. It has been given to me. Mm-hmm. That Joe Brady said that he would rather brush his teeth with sandpaper than recruit again.
So it's not happening.
It would utterly shock me. Like I would be more shocked that Joe Brady's going to Notre Dame than Tommy Rees going to Alabama. And you know how shocked I am behind that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I know that there's a lot of, we're going after Joe Brady, but
I'm sure they're going after Joe Brady, but I agree with you after we had some conversations this week. I don't think that it is a likely thing. One name, first of all, what I can say is I don't have any inside information on this. I have simply just been reading up on what the possible candidates, and I have never seen
a more diverse,
a wider range of names.
Mm-hmm.
Every single article has different names. There's no consistency. There's absolutely no consistency. I will say, one name I hate, I keep seeing Joe Moorhead, who was very inconsistent as an offensive play caller in Akron. Like, are those results that we want to translate to being the offensive coordinator. I do kind of like Byron Leftwich. That's one I keep seeing pop up. I don't know if Byron Leftwich has any intention or interest in coming back down to the college level. I don't know if he wants to wait out the cycle and maybe take a quarterback coaching job in the NFL. But I will say that Byron Leftwich was unjustifiably fired from his position with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when their defense was a lot of the cause of the problems for them not winning games that they could have won this past season. They were one of the best offensive teams in the NFL with a 46-year-old quarterback, a banged-up offense across the board, and aging receivers. Like, I think that Byron Leftwich is a really talented offensive mind. If you're Marcus Freeman, I'm picking the phone up and going after him instead of wasting my time on Joe Brady. If I'm getting someone from the NFL, that's who I'm going for.
The Byron Leftwich angle is something that I have not thought about. It didn't even cross.
Neither did I until I did. I read some articles this morning. I will say I do have some slight sourcing, but the only sourcing I have.
Oh, you can't say that word without this being played.
Oh, I'm not sharing any information. I'm not sharing any information with the sourcing that I have. I don't think it's realistic. That's all I'm going to say. It's the same as these articles. I don't think anybody really knows. That's the thing.
No, they don't. And the problem is when you have a defensive minded head coach, you like a Saban, okay? Mm-hmm. You never know what trajectory they're going in.
Right.
You have no idea what Marcus Freeman's what keeps Marcus Freeman up at night. Meaning I remember having a conversation with Dave Aranda so many years ago. I think it was 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about the teams that go vertical, meaning he was really Lincoln Riley gave him issue, would keep him up. And Dave did a really good job against Lincoln. Gus Malzahn gave Dave a lot of worries. Lane Kiffin. You never just really know where these guys are going. And defensive-minded head coaches, when they talk about offense, it's always all over the place.
Yeah.
Here's the only thing that would worry me if I'm a Notre Dame fan. You're in February. You're late in this process. You're going to have to go and spend money to get a capable offensive coordinator.
I think that there is a willingness to spend money, but you're absolutely right. The timetable's it's effed right now. It's screwed. There was, and I said this at the beginning of the season, 4 games into TCU's success, I was like, Notre Dame needs to go after Garrett Riley. And a current rival of theirs in Clemson just hired Garrett Riley. So that's why that list is so diverse, and why I think so many people do not have a lot of information when in the past they usually do have indications of who could be that guy. There's no information out there because no one knows, because the candidates that are out there are poo. They're crap. There's not a lot of good options. There's not a lot of good options. I think that Byron Leftwich, though, is a really underrated one. I think after seeing all these different names that were brought up, he's one of the most attractive to go after.
How funny would it be if Sam Hartman left Wake Forest to go to Notre Dame and Notre Dame hires Wake Forest offensive coordinator Wayne Ruggiero?
That would be hilarious. Well, because was he trying to escape him?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that would just be kind of funny. There's not a lot on the board.
No.
Okay, there's not a lot of guys on the board. Marcus Freeman, let me tell you how, just for fans, Joe, I don't know how much you know of how this process goes. Marcus Freeman, when he's looking for an OC, he doesn't just start calling buddies.
No.
Okay, what normally happens is he calls his agent, and his agent has a long list of guys. Okay, now, do you know who Marcus Freeman's agent is? By just a side note.
Do you?
I don't know. I don't.
I'm going to look it up.
Good luck, because they don't publicize that. I think it might be Jimmy Sexton. And if it is Jimmy Sexton, because it was when the whole LSU thing was going on. If it's Jimmy Sexton, Jimmy's going to be able to help him out and getting him somebody, because Jimmy's going to have clients. I just don't know where they go at this point. But you know what I want to see from Notre Dame, to be honest with you?
I think it is Jimmy Sexton. It is quoting a Football Scoop article from a couple of years ago. Sexton's colleagues at CAA also represent some of the bright. He's at CAA regardless, so you're on.
But well, Jimmy Sexton is not going to allow the head coach of Notre Dame and him not be highly involved in it, because Jimmy Sexton is probably, from what I hear, a very big narcissist when it comes to how he conducts business, but a really jolly guy.
Breaking news: an agent is narcissistic.
I don't think people would have thought about that.
Right.
I just don't know. Like, I just don't know where they go. Maybe Mike Denbrock. Maybe.
I'm sure that there's going to be a phone call. I would be stunned if that Marcus doesn't at least call him up and say, any interest, or do you have any guys that you would recommend? I don't know what their relationship is like. I don't have any information on what their relationship is like, but I would think that would be a possibility.
Let me ask you this. When Marcus Freeman called Brian Kelly for help, like,
I was just thinking that I don't know what, again, I don't know what their relationship is like.
Well, let me tell you what Brian Kelly has said here.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly said that him and Marcus are still pretty close.
Well, he tried to hire him as his defensive coordinator.
Like,
I don't think there's any bad blood. And if
right,
I think Marcus Freeman needs to be thanking Brian Kelly, because he wouldn't be the head coach right now if he hadn't left. And
Correct.
I'm sure that he gave a positive review on him to the Notre Dame faithful. I don't think that move would have gone through if there wasn't a positive recommendation.
So you have no, like, who do you want them to hire?
I want Byron Leftwich. I think that looking at the
I just don't think that he'll do that. Do you think Byron Leftwich would actually do that?
I'm just talking perfect world. If you can attract a good play caller.
Do you think Byron Leftwich offense works in college football?
I don't see why it can't. I think that
Go ahead.
He was calling plays oriented for Tom Brady. I think that he's good enough of an offensive coordinator to make adaptations to, jumping down college level. I think that they just need a little bit of a palate cleanser and a little bit of a scheme transition, because I think we can all agree the way that they've run things under Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees has not been good.
You know who I'm calling? You know who I'd call? And you're going to laugh and you're going to hate every single second of it.
I'm willing to bet that I am.
I'd call Dan Mullen.
I don't think Dan Mullen's taking that job, though. I feel like Dan Mullen would have been hired as an OC in the SEC, I feel like, by now. I feel like he is waiting for
I don't think he would.
A good head coaching gig to open up.
I don't think that he would. I think Dan wants out of the SEC. Like, if he's going to coach again.
But if he wanted out of the SEC, and I don't know what his...
I'm just going to tell you this right now. I know of an SEC team that offered him the OC job and he turned it down. I know that for an outright fact. Now,
have there been any? I don't know if there's been any sourcing on if he's been offered a head coaching job outside of the SEC.
Yeah, I don't know that.
I think he would be looking for a head coaching job before he's looking for an offensive coordinator job, because it's not like he left in horrible graces.
He left in very horrible graces at Florida.
Okay.
Oh, no. They hate him. Like, they absolutely despise him at Florida. And what's crazy is they hire Billy Napier, who can't recruit worth a lick his damn self. and so it's like a circle. I just think Dan Mullen's a witch. I think he's one of the top 5 offensive play callers in the country, because he's from that. You know what I always thought? I always thought that Urban Meyer was going to stay at Ohio State, and eventually he was going to get fired at Mississippi State or Florida, and then he was going to go back to Urban, and they were going to wreck shop. Now, here's another question. Now, I don't know how all this would transpire, but there are some guys from that central location. Now, Tom Herman's back. He's I forget. I think he's at FAU now.
He is at FAU, yeah.
So like, it's just, you're so late in the game, and that stinks for Notre Dame. Is there anybody on staff that they would just promote?
I don't think so. I really, when Tommy Rees got promoted, you could see for a few years when he was working his way up that was the inevitable outcome. Like, you just got the sense. You can tell when a guy's moving up the coaching staff that the minute something opens up, he's going to get hired. I know that Marcus Freeman's only been there for a year. I don't see anyone right now in the current coaching staff that makes like home run sense. I'm sure that there are options, and I'm sure that Marcus is evaluating them, but I haven't been impressed by anybody necessarily that makes a lot of sense or that fits with what they're looking for. Like they've got good position coaches. They've got great position coaches, but can any of them call plays? I have no idea.
Everybody in the chat. Everybody in the chat. Who do you think Notre Dame should hire?
I saw
Ryan
Charlie Ways
asked-
Jr. and I don't. I think like on paper it makes sense, but if you're Notre Dame, the Notre Dame fans would not take kindly to that. And I know that he's a good coach. Like he's not a bad coach.
I gotta give you a little look. You know that I love you, Joe, but I gotta give you a little tough older brotherly love.
Okay.
You ready? Notre Dame needs to get out of their own way on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
They need to get out of their own way on this one.
Are you saying that?
Go ahead.
Sorry, no, go ahead. I was going to ask you a question. Go ahead.
Look, listen to me. And LSU fans are going to kill me for saying this. Dude, we literally had a football coach who ate grass. Okay? He literally ran toss dive over and over and over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
He had running backs like Darius Geis and Leonard Fournette. It took Ed Orgeron to come in and say, hey, this guy, Joe Brady, look, I've been around a lot of good offensive play callers. I've been around Steve Sarkisian. I mean, they were all at USC together. I've been around Lane Kiffin. I've been around a lot of dudes. Joe Brady's one of those guys. That's how Orgeron looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Notre Dame's got to get out of their way and stop saying this guy's a Notre Dame man or whatever justifications that they're going to make. You got to get out of your way on this one. Yeah. And it is an ultimate opportunity for Marcus Freeman. Marcus Freeman could literally change his trajectory and get Notre Dame back into the relevancy that they were under Brian Kelly. He's got to make a home run hire. And if you want to get there, and Joe, I'm going to tell you something. Recruits would go to a school if your offense is dynamic and elite.
Yes.
They would. You gotta get out of your own way on this one. And I know that might hurt for some Notre Dame people to hear, but deep down, I think everybody knows that that's just truth.
I think that I agree with you on that, but it's asking a lot for Notre Dame to not have like my dad went to Notre Dame.
Enjoy not winning national titles.
I know.
If even Nick Saban, Notre Dame fans, even Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, for crying out loud, Dabo went and got a new OC that's not even on his staff. You have to make adjustments, and you got to shut your little Catholic mouths, pause, and you got to get out of your own way. Look, again, LSU fans are going to kill me on this one. Notre Dame is a blue blood institutional program. College football is better when Notre Dame is good, correct?
Yes. Absolutely.
Get out of your own way and stop, hamstringing what you think that they should do and let the man make the hire. It would be funny. You know what would be funny? I was thinking about this last night. If Tommy Rees goes to Alabama and Marcus Freeman makes a better hire than Alabama did in replacing Tommy Rees.
Well, one name that actually got popped up on one of these articles is Jeff Lebby, the Oklahoma guy who who everyone was saying was the lead candidate for Alabama's offensive who was Alabama's offensive coordinator.
Did I say anything wrong about Notre Dame?
It's Saturday morning.
You're a Notre Dame fan, Joe. Did I say anything wrong about Notre Dame?
I don't know. This is why I try not to read comments. I laugh too much at the ridiculous spelling.
Joe Long. Hey, Joe, your mom says hi.
But to your point, I think like if you hire Jeff Lebby, like that's one that considered as like a possibility that I saw brought up, and that was who people were saying Alabama should hire, and instead they go with Tommy Rees. I think that's a one-up. If you hire Lebby, then you're one-upping Alabama. Absolutely.
He says I talk crap about Catholics. Oh, he blocked him. Unblock him. Unblock him. I was, dude, I'm Catholic, bro. Anyway. All right. We'll just have to wait and see who Notre Dame hires. All right, we're not going to get to this Matt Rhule thing. We've been trying to talk about Matt Rhule since, for 5 weeks.
He can
and
wait.
we haven't been able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Let's end it here though. This whole Texas and Oklahoma thing is literally driving me insane. Joe, I am so sick and tired of hearing about Texas and Oklahoma coming into the SEC that I literally am going to throw up. Like, wait until 2025 because everybody wants them in the SEC. I know it's going to be more TV money and all this kind of revenue. I get all that. But let me just tell you this. Be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you wish for. I forget who tweeted this yesterday, Joe, but somebody said the Big 12 is a group of 5 conference without Texas and Oklahoma. I agree to the money extent. Like, from a money standpoint, I agree. They bring the most eyeballs. They bring in the most money. It's really difficult for you to say that over the last 2 years. Baylor won the Big 12 in 2021. TCU got to a national title, and Kansas State won the Big 12.
Yeah,
it's really difficult for me to. Joe, it's just so difficult for me to think that Oklahoma and Texas is going to come into the SEC and start running stuff, as so many Texas fans believe that they're going to do under Sark. I literally want to vomit anytime somebody brings up the Texas Longhorns. They come out with their schedule this week and like, the floor is 10 wins. No, buddy, the floor is you better beat Kansas.
No, you're absolutely right.
You laugh. I'm not joking.
You're absolutely right.
I'm not joking.
You're 100% right. No, the strange connection to like the belief of success from the past that it has led to this much delusion to this point forward. You didn't even win your bowl game. You didn't even beat Washington. Let's focus on winning our opener.
You got on me about Washington earlier. They beat whom?
Texas.
Oh, who's the quarterback?
Quinn Ewers. Oh, Michael Penix. You're talking about.
Oh.
Separate from that, I agree with you on this. Where I don't understand why they're in such a hurry. I know from monetarily, absolutely, but like if you're trying to build some momentum. Stay in the Big 12 as long as you can. You got all these good recruiting classes. You need to carry that momentum into the SEC. Why are you so quick to jump after you lost your bowl game and you finished with 4 or 5 losses and you lost to Washington? Why do you want to step into the ring and get knocked out this quickly?
There's only one man that's alive. Only one that can bring Texas back to relevance. Only one. You want to know who it is?
Sam Ellinger?
Oh,
we're back.
No. The only person that can bring Texas back to relevance, Chuck Norris, Walker, Texas Ranger.
That was not the direction I think you're taking that in.
Only person.
Mm-hmm.
And it broke me inside to hear that Trevette died. But hire Chuck Norris. That's the only person that's going to bring Texas back. I'm just telling you. It is.
I do still think that.
I'm so tired of this, though, because they come in here and they act as if, the SEC is going to be easy. Georgia has an easy schedule. Joe, let me look. I get labeled the SEC homer for Believe hosts.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. I get ripped by the other Believe hosts. Blake's an SEC homer. I get ripped alive for my top 10 this week that I posted. Oh, you don't like the East. Bro, you got Georgia, and then you got Texas people out here with their ideology of Southern Baptist football, and Austin's a great, crazy town. Bitch, you can't win the Big 12. Joe, they can't win the Big 12, and you want me to think that they could come into Death Valley and beat somebody up? Do you think you could go to Sanford Stadium and beat Georgia? Here's another thing. We're talking about Alabama and Tommy Rees earlier. You can't go to Neyland and Knoxville. Rocky Top, you'll always be home, sweet home to me. You can't go up there and score that many points and beat them, Joe. I'm so sick and tired of the University of Texas. I just want to fucking throw up.
Their success is going to be more comparable to Texas A&M than it is going to be to any of these other top teams.
They will.
That's the closest that they're going to get. That's the highest they're going to get.
They won't have more success in the first 10 years than A&M did.
That is a hot take.
You know why it is? Because they can't have that own success in the Big 12 that sucks big titty nipples.
Again, we did this a couple weeks ago when we talked about this. I don't disagree that they're not going to struggle. They're going to struggle, but the recruiting success that they've had is noticeable.
They've been having great recruiting success,
but it wasn't translating.
None
of it was translating. I think that Sark already very quickly has, as bad as inconsistent as they were last year, Sark has still turned that ship around.
They haven't won a national title since Bill Clinton was in office, damn near.
You're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong. They're going to be better than Texas A&M. We have to.
Maybe not Bill Clinton. I think it was George W. Bush.
But they're going to be better than Texas A&M. I see them being competitive.
Won't.
They're not going to step. They're not going to step in and be a Mizzou. They're not going to step in and be that bad. They're not going to be Missouri.
I didn't say that. But you know
what?
What?
That's basically what that means, is being worse than Texas A&M means being Missouri, basically. Because Missouri's had some good years.
Texas A&M had 90 wins in 10 seasons. 90.
Okay.
Texas can't have 90 wins in the Big 12
because they've had bad coaching hires. They've had a lot of bad coaches.
Stark's been there 2 years and couldn't do shit. Brian Kelly literally goes to LSU, wins the West. Shane Beamer has having more success than Steve Sarkisian. Here's a hot take for your ass.
Okay.
Shane Beamer's having more success at South Carolina than Steve Sarkisian is at Texas. Tell me I'm wrong.
He has done better. He also lost to Notre Dame in a bowl game.
Which means he's having more success.
I don't think that Texas gets their ass beat as bad against Georgia as South Carolina did. I think South Carolina benefited from some circumstances.
Big, hairy dog balls all over that Longhorn face.
I think that South Carolina benefited from some positive circumstances going up against Tennessee with an injured Hendon Hooker who went down in the middle of that game, and they were able to win that game because of that.
Clemson's ass.
But Clemson stunk last year. I said since the beginning of the season that Clemson was overrated, and they blew.
Clemson would beat Texas.
No. Clemson is not beating Texas. They would not have beat Texas last year.
Look, they lost.
I think hold on. I'm defending Texas here. You're too hard on Texas.
Hold on one second.
Okay.
TCU beat Texas by 7 and then got fucking dog walked by Georgia. And you're going to sit here and tell me that Texas coming into the SEC.
Wait. We don't do the transitive property on this show. If I'm not allowed to do it, you're not allowed to do it.
Transitive property.
Okay.
It's about Georgia's got the big balls.
Okay.
You know that I'm right. Stop with this. Texas is recruiting good. Arch Manning's not your savior.
He is a little bit overrated as a recruit. But look, I get where you're coming from. But
I'm so tired of hearing about it.
It does not mean here's my key thoughts on this. Look, they're not going to have immediate translatable success. Arch Manning's first year in the SEC is not going to be a national championship run. It's just not. It is too hard to transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. It is not. But I do believe that they have the infrastructure, the fan base, the alumni base. The alumni base to eventually produce a good team in the SEC. They absolutely do. They have a history of being a good team.
But how can they not do it in the Big 12 then?
They've won national championships in the Big 12. And I know that was over 15 years ago, or however long it's been.
Saddam Hussein was still alive when they were winning a national title.
But it is possible to have.
You were in diapers the last time they won a national title.
That's not true. It is possible.
You were at primary school.
Bad coaches will hold you back. But bad coaching is going to hold you back that much. Bad hires, collective bad hires.
Nick Brown is a bad coach.
But my point is that as soon as
Mac Brown is a bad coach.
as soon as Mac Brown was done, they haven't had a single good coach. All of those coaches were all overhyped, and they were not the right man to turn the ship around.
What's Sark?
I think Sark still needs to prove himself, and he might not be the guy. And we talked about how Sonny Dykes might end up being the guy that they end up hiring in 3-4 years.
Please bring that.
I'm going to keep bringing it up because I think it's possible. It's absolutely possible. I don't know if Sark's the guy, but I think Charlie Strong, I didn't think that was a good hire. I didn't think that Tom Herman was as good of a hire as everyone made it out to be. Guys that didn't really have proven legitimate success at big programs.
I'm just so tired of hearing this Texas is back shit.
They're not back, but they can get back. That's my point.
Can they? But at some point, Joe, at some God-given point, we got to get to a scenario and situation where it's like, stop saying they're back. Stop putting them in the top 25. Stop saying the recruiting's elite when every year they're getting dog walked.
Look, there's obvious media bias that's going to put them in there. It's the same reason why.
You think?
Yeah, it's silly that all these old school journalists willingly throw them in their top 25s without.
They don't even know how to work an iPhone, and they're picking and telling me that Texas is going to be good. Is going to be back.
Well, if we're being honest, next year they will be back. If there's a year for them to win the Big 12, it's next year. Oh, Blake, come on.
I'm not listening to this.
Dude, they're returning the Wyoming kid at receiver that they had. Xavier Worthy's coming back.
I don't care what Wyoming kid they have.
We got one of the best offensive lines in the country. They had one of the best recruiting classes this last year. If some of those freshmen get on the field, they're going to be really good.
Hey,
their defense was underrated.
You know who else does all that too?
Who?
The SEC.
But they have to win the big. They're not in the SEC yet, so they're going to be in a easier conference. They have an SEC quality roster right now with the way that they recruited over the past couple of seasons.
My tummy's starting to hurt. I can't do this anymore.
We could yell about it. We could yell about it for hours. So
I can't fight over. You know that Texas is ass.
I know they're ass, and I get on my coworkers every single day that they're ass. But I don't think that they deserve to be assumed that they're going to be a failure again next year. I think there's a lot of positive signs.
Whatever. Yeah, as Adam B says, they're going to be back to being a dumpster. All right.
We'll see.
We've been at it for an hour and 20 minutes.
Good show.
Yes, great show. Until it was going fantastic until you started that bullshit.
I'm being realistic here. That's all I got to say. I'm not trying to be biased because I am biased against.
I like you were realistic with TCU going up against Georgia, huh?
Yeah. I have too much. I'm a Big 12 homer apparently. But
you are. And what's so crazy is you're from Jersey.
Oh, I have no affiliation. I don't understand why.
What is it because Texas has got things that are bigger? Joe, let me tell you what they don't have. Their women aren't hotter than ours in Louisiana. I'll promise you that.
I have no.
You got some bangers down here in the bayou, baby.
I have absolutely no context to provide for either of those states because I've been to Texas for like 15 minutes.
Well, I'll come teach. Let me come teach you. Come to Louisiana. I'll teach you how to eat crawfish.
I'm sure it's going to happen soon. I'm sure it'll happen soon.
We're out of here. I'm getting heartburn. Peace.